Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Reset the Vibe podcast. With me, this is very special guest. He's come back. He was on the show previously. Ladies and gentlemen, a nice warm welcome to Rodrick Chambers. Good sir, how are you?
I'm doing very well, man. Very well. And thank you once again for having me on your blessed platform.
No worries, bro. We always are glad to have you, man. So I know we got the meat and potatoes that we're about to dive into in just a little bit, but outside of that, outside of what we're about to get into, brother, how have you
Yes, sir.
been? What have you been up to since the last time we saw you, bro?
Man, that's a loaded question. Let me try my best to shorten the response and just say I'm very well. I'm alive. I cannot complain, and I'm just grateful to be here. I'm very grateful to be here, and so I hope you can feel that vibe
Yes.
coming from my words and my presence, man. I can't complain. I cannot complain at all. Sometimes life events will help us to come to that realization even the more of how grateful we should be. And yeah, man, I can't complain. Lots of changes, a lot of great things that have transpired. Obviously, we're going to be talking about some of those things on the platform today. Other than that, man, I'm blessed. Blessed.
That's good, bro. It's glad to see. I can feel it radiating through the screen. I can feel it. I can feel it, bro.
Let me tell them both.
I can definitely feel it. So you're here with us today, in part to promote something that you just recently released. You just released your first book,
Yes,
Almost Doesn't
sir.
Count, or does
Yes,
it?
sir.
Yes,
Or does
sir.
it? Thank you for putting that last part on there. Yes, sir.
Or does it, good sir? So out the gate, how does it feel, bro? How does it feel?
Well, did you see that cool smile that just popped up on my face when you just said the title of my book?
Yeah.
That's how it feels, man. It feels accomplished. And it feels like your baby just coming to fruition. Your baby just manifests all of that hard labor and that pushing and writing, and your brain child starts to form, and it pops out of your brain and you can actually pick it up. So it feels accomplished. I mean, words really can express. I'm grateful that it's done. That's one layer. I'm grateful that people have actually purchased the book. That's a whole nother layer,
Yeah.
and I'm looking forward to people reading the pages or listening to the audiobook once it comes out, and just hearing some feedback. I've told many of my friends who have purchased the book, be easy on me. This is my first book, but nonetheless, there's been a lot of love and a lot of support, especially from my family. And I just wasn't expecting as much love and support that has come forth since last Monday. So yeah, man, feels good. Feels good. As I would to you and many of your audience members that one behind my dear brother who has already released maybe two or three or however many books he's released. And so I'm playing catch up with my little big brother.
Oh man, it's an amazing feeling. It really is. Like you said, just to have all of that form in your brain and then pop out and for it like to actually be like in front of you holding it. Like I
Indeed.
remember when you were just a thought. It was just a little teeny
Absolutely.
bitty thought. It may have been just a word, and now you're many words all put together in one thing. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what your book is about?
I sure can. And before I do,
Mm.
I just want to put in a nice little plug. I forget sometimes how Zoom is operating, but in sections there are multiple hyperlinks. The first two hyperlinks are hyperlinks that you can actually go to Amazon and just the book. As of now, there are two forms. We have an e-copy and we also have the hard copy that you can purchase. Obviously, the e-copy you can actually download to your Kindle or to whatever digital platform that you have. So avail yourself to that. I'm sure that once this video is posted, that Tutar will also. Or what's your DJ name? Tutar.
I
I
go
want
by a lot, man. So here it's Vash, but like, so I'm different
Vash.
things to a lot of people, like different names, you know. So it's all good, bro.
Okay.
It's all good.
It's of the many and versions of my dear brother. Some know him as Tutar, some know him as Vash. That's because this is the platform. So he will post these links after our video has been uploaded. So that being almost doesn't count or does it is a book that essentially events in my life. What I have made intention to do around the failures of my life and really talk about change the narrative about how you may view those quote unquote failures with the intention and the encouragement to help people see that what you are counting as a failure might not be a complete failure as you thought it was. That being said, you may need to take a second, a third, or a fourth look around some event or something that has transpired in your life, whether it's a trauma, whether it was a breakup, whatever it may have been. You be able to go back and say, there's more treasure up under this. There's some more gold that can be discovered around this. There's a different perspective, perhaps, that you can go back and look at the situation and see that, you know what, I actually gained muscle in that part of my emotions that I didn't have before that. I actually got some insights around this particular part that I didn't get had I not gone through that. So the overall themes are helping people to reevaluate how they are viewing their failures and really making intentions around um, really just repositioning their angle in their stories. Snatching back their narratives is something that I often say throughout the book. Something that's very common to people. I try to use as many examples that are relatable to people because we need to have that certain kind of familiarity. But then hopefully you'll find that there are certain nuances that you may not have been aware of before that you'll be able to take back in your private time. That being said, it is a workbook. So at the end of each chapter, you get a chance to reflect about questions and some of the content in the book, but more about events in your own life. And you get a chance to write or think those things through with some support. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. It does. So what what sparked the idea for the book? What made you go like, you know what? This isn't something that I could put in a Facebook post. This isn't something that I could like do maybe like a little seminar or a little YouTube video. This is something that it needs to be written down. It needs to be in a book format to people.
You know what? I love your questions. You know, if I was next to you right now, I just slap your knee or I just a love tap on you or something. Or you know, in our culture, we may throw a shoe because I like that. So interestingly, interesting that you would bring up the social platforms like the Facebook and whatnot. Firstly, I'm a writer. I love to write, love to do blogs and things like that. My academic pedigree, my first two degrees are in communications. Undergrad is in broadcast journalism. Second degree is in or master's in mass communications. And so writing, speaking, those kinds of things, it's part of my background and my training. So blogging naturally is something I say natural, but something I love to do. But what I start finding is that I'd make these nice long threads and these discussions, and you know, honestly, I got caught up in the liking game, and nobody really liked my material. I wasn't seeing a lot of response around those materials, and so it started touching on my insecurity spots. I said, you know what? People gonna have to pay for what I for what I write. That's my more superficial response. But I love to write, and that's one thing. But the second thing, what makes this content something that needs to be in the book. It's because I am a lengthy writer for one, but I felt that it's the timing. I think that that's really important. In the last interview that I had for my book launch on Monday, or this past Monday, was it Monday? One of these days, 2 days back. One of the things I quoted was Ecclesiastics 8:5 that says, "A wise human's heart, modified slightly, a wise human heart discerns time and judgment of all matter and protocol." And when you have sharpened your skill of discernment around everything as much as you can around your life, especially when it's that matter and that can have a huge impact over one's life, very important that you key in and you tune in to what is the priority for that moment. What is being birthed in the moment? What needs to come forward in that moment or in that season? These are different discussions all within themselves, but I'll shorten this. I knew that it was the timing to release this book. And I have a few other books that are also going through the publishing process as well. Part of my heart's desire in this season and cycle of my life is to create a certain kind of movement. And though that move is still formulating, I have a great idea of what is going to be taking in my life, at least for the next couple of years, or at least what I believe visions that God has given me start putting into motion in these next couple of years. So I'll stop it there and see if there are any other questions, because there's that was a loaded question too, and there's a lot to be said on that. Um, yeah,
Oh, that's really important. Because things are timing is everything. You know what I mean?
yes, sir.
And uh I believe like with everything that you've been through and up to this point, there's a lot of knowledge to give. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So
bless
there's
you, man.
like, yeah, you know, like that. There's a lot of knowledge to give, and a lot of people at different stages in their life or whatnot could use the information that you're putting in the
Yes, sir.
book. Um, so I guess you can keep going if you like, but just a little. No, that'd be a question I ask later. Okay, so go ahead. You can go. You can
Okay,
continue.
sure. Well, something that I want you to think about is a title within itself. Um, Count or does it? It's a phrase that we often say depending on what area you're in. I think that's the count is something that's often quoted, whether you're an athlete, you are a person who's pursuing the individual success, right? Whatever it may be. I think that's one of those universal phrases that you use to essentially to stamp or to label around first place. You didn't place, you didn't get the success that you wanted, quote unquote. You didn't, whatever it may have been. And what we do oftentimes is we'll allow for that kind of to stop us from really evaluating what actually worked about the situation,
Mm.
what the relationships worked, and what about things can you build on or have you built on. That or does it is creating with intent paradigm shift to take a second look at the picture. And what I'm learning the older that I get is that often talk about the what's the term that's used, um, common phrases. There's a term that's escaped me right now, but it's the common phrases that we use, and I've heard it all before, and that's just, it's nothing new. But what I'm learning when you sit with some of your elders and you hear some of the most simplest things that they'll say, it's not always about these very extensive or deep things. Sometimes the deep things can be found in the most simplistic things around us, or the simplistic things that are said. And that's as wordy as I can be. I want to also keep that in the frontal lobe of my readers and listeners that sometimes it's those simple things that get you through life. It's those simple things, those adages or those phrasings that you say, you know what? I didn't understand when I was 5 or 6 or 10 or even a teenager what grandma meant when she said, keep waking up each morning, keep living. I didn't understand that until you start experiencing life in different ways. And then you start finding that, wow, I appreciate life a little bit better. Or I'm bitter about life like never before. And I don't like the way this feels. And at some point, you come to yourself and say, I can't stay here. And I think what often happens is that there's a presumption when we say, well, you just kind of wake up out of this dark place, you just kind of wake up into yourself. There's a presumption that you just wake up with these skills on how to go about living, on how to go about starting conversations, on how to go about dealing with failures. There's several motivational videos out there. We can see those anywhere. You can pull up a YouTube very quickly on, these success videos and, and these stories of how this person made from here to there. And those are great, but oftentimes we forget that it's the process in between. You just don't wake up into this success. You don't just wake up into this Zen mode or what have you. You know that it takes a process to create new baselines where there once was PTSD. It takes intentions to create new baselines where there was perhaps chaos in these dysfunctional behaviors that we may have been used to coming out of. But what we learn is that when we are equipped with the kinds of questions, we'll just say to start for starters, when someone can ask us something and really have to deepen the way that we're considering how we are experiencing life in that moment, then that starts to move us to another layer or level how we show up in life. And I am still speaking pretty general um, in our conversation, but I think as you read the book and as you start to pair it with each chapter, you start to read some of those questions, it'll make more sense for some of the readers or some of the viewers and readers.
Yeah, you touched on something, and I can totally attest to it. Of just having going through things, um, and we consider them just like bad experiences, whether it's relationships or just everyday life. But just thinking, okay, what did work? What are the good
Yes.
things? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
all right, so 98% of this whole thing was bad, but what is the 2% thing that is good from this that I
Yeah.
could use, that I could take with me, that I could build upon? That's an important thing. Like that's
Yes.
that is a good mindset to have, in my opinion. Because I remember when I was writing one of my books, it was I was going through that same thing and that same process of, okay, I'm here, it's a crappy situation, but I want it there's has to be some type of good to come from it, because this whole situation from start to beginning was not crap. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't bad.
For sure.
You know what I
For
mean?
sure.
So what can I learn from this? What can I take from this? So maybe, next time if I see this, I'd be like, I remember from last time. So now I can
There
go
we go.
about this
There we go.
differently. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully, I could have a different, better outcome than the last time. And that's a beautiful thing to have. And that's so important.
Yes,
I'm
it
glad that
is.
you have that in your book, because I don't think a lot of people, think that way. And it's not necessarily because of them. And it's not a bad thing. And you know what I'm saying? It's just something that a lot of us haven't been taught. Like we haven't been
Sure.
sat
Sure.
down and being like, all right, baby, I know you had a bad day in school, but let's break this down. A lot of times, especially when
Yes.
I had a bad time in school, it was like, all right, my mom listened to what I had to say. It's gonna be okay, baby. Don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? Give me something to distract my mind, maybe some ice cream or something. You know what I mean? And then
Sure.
like it was that.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
And building upon that, and that happens every time, you don't build those type of skills. You know what I mean? So it's really good.
Absolutely.
It's really good that you have that in your book, to be able to help highlight those things for people to start getting that paradigm shift, get start changing that mindset. You
It,
know,
you know, eh, and there was plenty of what you just said that could really we could stay right there in this you, and there still wouldn't be enough time to go over some of the things that you just shared, even in the example that you gave as a teacher. One of the things that I went through with some training was when you're creating, designing your lesson plan for that particular day or for the semester, is that you have to consider all of the factors that contribute to developing your class. And part of that is also be your damage control, but not just, and I hated that word damage control. Like, I don't want to go into something anticipating damage. Is there another word or phrase that we can use for that? But that's for a different situation. But what it taught me was that you're not allowing for any experience to happen, lesson planning process or your class, that you're not thinking how to either be intentional about it or how to up level experience, how to make it better. And when you translate that over any area of your life, you find that it's rewarding. It renders a reward. And what it does is it starts to waken up certain, I'm going to say, it starts to waken up certain muscles in your thinking, so that again, you find life to just pass you by and just say, oh, oh hell, oh dang, this just happened. And this life is just, it's bad. We've all had some jacked up stuff that have happened or that will happen. And it's so important that we assess how we go through it. I don't care who you are, there's always somebody who has gone through something worse than you, hands down. You can tell a story, they're going to tell you 5 or 10 more war wound stories. It doesn't matter who it is, but what begins to separate you, and it's not a matter of you being here or them being here, but what
right?
separates you in terms of your mental and emotional as well as your spiritual health, it's how you go through it. And it seems very simple, and it seems, if you're not careful, you can write that off. And it don't matter how I go through it. Life is life, and I'm here, and I'm just going to go. No, 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 no. Set some intention behind that, and then begin to develop the kinds of qualities that are needed to say, this this situation right here, I am above, ticked off. But I know if I allow for this energy to remain in me, not only will it have an impact on perhaps the decision that I'll make, but it's already having an impact on my physical body. The last time you interviewed me, we primarily focused on my being a massage therapist, so we talked about some of that. And a common phrase that I may have mentioned in that interview was that the issues are in the tissues, and that's something that we commonly say in the industry as a massage therapist, is that what we experience in life literally becomes a part of our bodies. So when you experience stress in your body, it's going to find its way somehow, some way in different parts of your tissues, your muscle tissues, your legs, your feet, your toes, your head, your ears. It's going to find its way in your body. And it's going to sit there. And if you don't have a place to release, then what naturally happens is it starts to build up. And then that building up is where we start to see our health become that much more compromised. So even though we may say, oh, it's in the past, I've moved past it, your body is telling me something much different, because you're holding on to all of that trauma and that stress and all that stuff that you've gone through. You hold on to it because you don't have a place to release. And so if it was really about just going through life and life just happens and we just kind of move on, you don't think about it. If that were the case, then your physical body would release that stuff and you would no longer have to deal with it. And so when I talk about snatching back your narrative in this particular book, it may appear to be something very simple, or the questions may appear to be just, well, I'm just writing down questions. No, what you're doing is you're initiating a healing process in your mental body in your spiritual body as well as your physical body. And that's very important. So you're absolutely right. Taking that 2% and starting to unfold that 2% and see what that 2% has to offer you is critically important. Not just going and getting the ice cream to feel better, but say, well, wait a minute, before I take a lick off this ice cream, let me take a few breaths and figure out what was it about today's experience that got me to where I am and got me into the mindset that I'm experiencing right now, and how can I make this better so that I'm not having to resurface back around to this and having to test over. Am I making sense?
No, you are making sense. You making a lot of sense, bro. No, you definitely making sense. And I guess without saying the word, like that's a lot of self-reflection. You know what I mean? That's sitting taking time to sit with yourself and think about things. Um and for you to be able to write this book and the way that you wrote it and everything, I'm assuming that you had to do like some self-reflection and things as well for
Ooh,
yourself. So let me ask you this, because I know that I had to do it as well. So
yes, sir.
what I guess if it's not one thing,
Mm.
you can list multiple, but like what was like the toughest thing about writing your book? If you're comfortable with that. If you're not, we can move on. I don't want to put you on the spot.
Oh no, I love the question. You're asking really good questions too, Todd. And I have to say, I really applaud you for taking the time to think about what you ask your guest. Um, it's a very sensitive question, but it's one I'm obliged to answer as much as I can. But I want to sit with that just a few and to allow that bad boy to marinate before I just give you a response. Mm,
Take your time, bro. Take your time.
mm, mm. Let me say, firstly, uh, I've had a few books that I've started, and one particular. Um, oh, what was that book called? Oh, I can't think of the title at the moment. But nonetheless, I'll complete it at some. But to compare the process between that book and this one that's been released, and even the other ones that'll be, is the difference of the process. And I think that's critically important for someone like me, that when you are a person who devotes a lot of spiritual, or you make a lot of spiritual investment in yourself, very self-reflective, when you're a person who picks up a lot, you absorb a lot of energy and you give off a lot of energy. It's very important for personalities like this to be self-reflective and have moments where you can debrief and make sure as you debrief, you do one or two things, and maybe more. You have to know what kind of energy is coming from you, okay? And you have to know the kind of energy around you. Because if you're not careful, if there's no filter in between space, then what you may perceive, and I shared this last week, what you may perceive is as I'm just saying what I feel, I'm just being real, would say, and you don't consider the ramifications, the consequences of you just keeping it real, then you can go about hurting a lot of people in the way that you share, whether it's through communication verbally, whether it's through written form, or whatever your art is. Now, I'm completely prepared to take a lot of backlash around a comment like that, especially in a council culture or a perhaps a generation or a time frame that we're in that just says say what you feel, think, whatever, think out loud, so to speak, post what you feel, perform your process live, and just whatever, just put it out there. On the contrary to that, what we don't realize is that that may be one version of ourselves that experiences that. And for some people, get hey, they got to go through that process. That's a part of their process, and they may have to do that publicly. But for some others, we really need to think about how we want that part or that version of ourselves to be displayed among other people. And so, to answer your question, the process of writing this book and making sure that the words that I say, the stories that I share, that they are reflective of not just myself, but friends, family, loved ones. I wanted to do them justice. And I wanted to be clear about what healing looked like for me writing any book, releasing any material. What does healing look like for me so that when I publicly share, that will be the same experience that people will experience. That the intention of healing will meet them right where they are. When they flip each page, or they read each paragraph, or they read each sentence, that they're going to get that kind of vibration from them. And again, I'm not saying that that has to be everybody's process, but for me, that was very important in this process. And it didn't take long because I discerned the time and I knew that it was time for me to push this thing out. But the process along the way, there's been a lot of deep therapeutic processes that have had to happen for me to be able to construct some of the content that I have, including this particular book. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, it did. Yeah, bro, and that was beautiful for you to share. You know what I mean? Because a lot of like when you put out something, um, it's especially like within a book or like music or whatnot like that. It's yours. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And you
For
put
sure.
it out, and once it's out. You know,
Yeah.
it could be perceived however it's going to be perceived. It could be perceived completely differently and the opposite of what you wanted it to be. You know,
Sure.
and just to share it, like, because once again, like I put out a book before, and it was emotional. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the process of me putting it out, um, I had to ask myself some tough questions. You know, I had to look myself in the mirror, and
Mhm.
I couldn't lie to me. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
could lie to
That's
everybody else.
real.
I could put a facade on. I could be happy and like, yeah, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? But inside, it's just like I'm really going through it. You know,
Hmm.
and just to be able to share that, or either share like a piece of your story and how you healed, what healing looks like for you. You know what I mean? Like that's a big thing. That's a courageous thing. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
mm,
Because like I said, like anybody could perceive it any way how they want. They could just look at that like, yeah, that's not real. That doesn't happen. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And
for
and
sure.
hearing
For
and hearing and seeing those type of things, it's just like, no, that's what helped me. And you dismissing that, it kind of hurts. So like I can understand it. So like I appreciate.
real. Oh no, no, no. I was saying, yeah, no, you own it. You
Yeah,
own it.
yeah. So like bro, I appreciate the honesty and the comfortableness to be vulnerable to share that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because that's something big. Um,
Before you ask the next question, to make this statement as well, um, you being a artist, it's as an artist, it's somewhat a catch 22 at times
mhm,
because we appreciate certain kinds of art in raw form, right? Don't try to fix it up. Don't try to edit. Don't try to commercialize it or just give it to me just the way that it is. We appreciate those things because we can connect certain, even if we don't understand it. And the album that comes to mind for me, music album anyway. Um, it's the difference between Lauryn Hill's Miseducation of Lauryn Hill and then the Unplugged, depending on some may say that that second Unplugged album was a complete flop. She should have never done that, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I know she's a very highly charged artist right now, given situations around the first album, the productions, who wrote it, who got who, all that. Aside from all of that, we see two very different kind of two different kinds of artists that went. Um, but that unplugged version, as literally deep as a lot of that stuff was, and I still have to go back. Dang, what do you mean by that? Where that come from? You know, but it was appreciating her space and her process and how she was able to create this piece of art in this very defunct place and just let it be experienced by the consumers. I say all that to say that for any artist that's listening to I'm not saying that you have to follow this process, and I want to make that very clear, because some of you that's going to be your therapy to just say it the way that you feel it. For others, you need to be discerning about your process and how your process needs to be, especially as an artist. You may have to reconfigure your delivery because of the kind of purpose you may serve or the kind of um, being you may be. You need to investigate that a little bit more so that when you deliver, um, your intentions, whether you know it at that moment or later on, can be experienced the way that you truly want them to be experienced.
Absolutely. Absolutely, bro. And you touched on something a little bit earlier um in our conversation about the support that you've been receiving
Mm.
for the book. Because I was at your release party, you know. It was a great turnout, bro, just to hear,
Yes, sir.
you know, people's, you know, stories of you and how important, you know, just the relationship with you are to them, you know, even
Wow.
including myself,
Yes, sir.
you know.
Honor.
Man, like I know that obviously that you're happy, but I want to see if I can like delve deeper into that. Like, how does that make you feel? Like having that support of like, because it's a scary thing to put out something that you've worked a long time on,
Yes, sir.
you know, singing like, man, are people gonna like it? Are people gonna read it? Like, am I even gonna get any feedback? Yeah, are people gonna be like, oh, that's cool, good for you, and then move on? Like, but to actually have the support for one, people actually sharing, commenting, liking, all of that, to people actually purchasing the book, to you being number one, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Cause congratulations on that, good sir.
Thank
Okay,
you very, 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 very much. Yes, sir.
congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But yeah, man, like, how does that feel?
Um, there's man, there's so many feelings. Firstly, there's a feeling, of course, of being grateful, being appreciative, thankful, in awe. As you mentioned, to for that evening, you all helped me to become number one new release, and then the next day become number one bestseller for that time period. And that was just like I was floored. I was in awe because um, I just didn't realize that kind of love and support would come back. Now, when people read the book, they may have a different opinion about that, but at least for the night, for those 2 days, when people purchased the book and helped to boosted up to be a number one bestseller and number one new release. I didn't know what to say, man. It's just like I had a lot going on at work at the time. When I got that message from the publishing company, it really made me feel really good. And the call, the launching, even to see and to hear the people show up and to support family, friends that I've known for years, including yourself. I mean, it just doesn't get any better. I mean, as you know, I'm all about how can I serve somebody else? You know, how can I share my platforms? How can I share in the limelight, so to speak? How can I share these moments because it's not about me? And if that night didn't prove it, then I don't know what would. So to have each of you show up and to share your stories and my connection with you, um, man, it made me really feel loved. And yes, it's a very vulnerable place when you are putting content out where you're being vulnerable and you don't know how people are going to receive it. One of the things that I had to keep reminding myself, and not because of the book, but I think you have to do this off stage, so to speak, or off camera, is that you have to genuinely practice what you preach. You have to genuinely mean that I'm going to support me. I want to give myself more of a winning chance than anybody else. So how does that look? That means when my videos pop up, I'm gonna like my video, whether people see it as arrogant or whatnot. I'm gonna like my comments. You know, if I put music out there, I'm gonna like it. I'm gonna make sure I support what I put out there more than anyone else. Even whenever I cringe at times, like I shouldn't have put that. Ooh, I didn't want to release that. Man, I should have said it differently this way. One of the reiterations I put in the book, which is a very true thing in my life, my mom, anytime we didn't want to do something, her statement was, "Yeah, you go do it." With that stern way that a mom could only say. And that has followed me, has continued to follow me, whether I was living overseas or whether I was living in a different state, wherever I was, or I was presented with that I didn't know how I was going to get through it. Once I knew and heard this is the will for your life in this moment, then that was back door with my mother's voice. Yeah, you're gonna do it. You're gonna finish it too, and you're gonna do it well. And so, to answer your question, all of those were my emotions, was my experience, and I'm still unfolding what this has meant for me.
That's beautiful. That's
Yes.
beautiful, bro. So you mentioned working with a publishing company. Um,
Mhm.
how was that like?
It- Great. Um, I have the benefit of the couple that did the launching last November 1st. They have been close friends of mine years, and so to be able to come under their umbrella this process, I wouldn't have had it any other way. They have been very dear friends, and the kind of people you just want to make sure you stay in connection with. So I have no complaints of the process with them. They're a new company, TNR Publishing, and I'll make sure I'll get you that information. But TNR Publishing, with Tommy Wayne Willis, Mr. Willis, and Dr. Rosalind Willis. Um, Fantastic couple. If you're looking to get anything published or write, please make sure you look them up because you won't be disappointed. The plug for them, Too Tall. Dr. Willis is wanted to make sure she gets because she would love to have you on her platform to be interviewed as well. So make sure we make that connection.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, so I guess we can start to wrap up here, but uh, for your book, when it came out, when you actually had it in your hands, it was out to the world, it was out to the public. Uh, one, did you go through it and just read it yourself like it was something brand new to you? That's one. But a follow up is when you did you see anything that you thought to yourself, I could have did this differently. I could have said this differently. Things could have been a little bit better here. What was that like for you?
So I haven't received my physical copy just yet, although I have seen it. We had to send back the first copy because there was some things going on with the title on the cover, so they had to send it back and make the corrections. So I haven't physically held it in my hand just yet. However, I did download my e-copies. I did flip through the pages. Of course, it's still not the same experience of having the physical book in your hand and like flipping it through. It is on its way. It's been mailed off to me, and so once it gets in my hand, I will be sure to let you know how that experience feels. But that being said, I have read through my book just in terms of the edits and having to send them off. I think I've had at least maybe 4 or 5 different edits. And then, of course, going through and doing the audio. I personally did the audio for the book, reading through all of the pages. I did some more edits because anybody who has done any kind of anchoring or even what we're doing podcasting, you realize that your speaking voice and your writing voice can be very different, and you have to make those negotiations. As you shake your head, you make those
Yeah,
negotiations on what terms are best used to actually say, because sometimes there's certain terms when I speak, they don't come out as easy, and it's a little bit more challenging for me to say. And then also you start to realize certain redundancies in your writing, and it's like, ooh, having to keep hearing that over and over again.
mm,
I need to cut that. I need to add this, put some more variety there, add a more, more literary devices, if you will, for the reader. So that process has been ongoing, and I'm quite sure, knowing me, when I go back through and read it again, I'm going to find other things that I want to change. And so for any person, whether you're an artist or a writer, what have you, you got to have that what we call sometimes the Holy Ghost or the Spirit of Discernment or the Spirit to discern to say, hey, okay, enough, stop. We're not doing any more editing there. Release it, publish it, get it out of your hand. That's it. So that's what that process has been. It's kind of like that little kid, like, okay, I just want to change just that last piece. Okay, let me add this. It's that, but it's now I'm at a place where it's like, okay, first version is done. Just have in your mind that was beta. We're gonna have a 2.0 probably in about a year or two.
no, I totally feel that. I totally feel that because I went through that myself with my books, man. It's just like, and then like when it's like before I
How come you didn't tell me this was gonna be the process, man?
I did listen. Okay, it was a surprise to me. Okay, when you talk about, oh, I got a book coming, I'm like, a book. Why you ain't tell me? Why you ain't say nothing? You
Man, I
know,
go underground and do my work, man. Don't nobody know nothing.
no,
Well,
that's cool though. That's
I'm with you
cool
though.
though.
I
So
should have sought your advice though first. Been like, man, tell me about your process. Let me know.
it's all good, bro, because it came out good anyway. You know what I'm saying? Without any
Okay.
of my input. So
I still want your input when you finish reading it though.
for
Whenever
sure,
that is.
for
This
sure.
year, next week, whatever.
For sure, bro. I got you. I got you. So as we wrap up here, is there anything that you want to leave the audience with? Any last remarks? Any last words?
And you know not to give me no last remarks. You know I'm gonna make this 30 minutes. No. Let me say, for any person who is wanting to leave their mark in this world, no, we're not guaranteed to. And it's a fine dance between discerning your time and discerning the moment, if you will, of your cycle, and then also understanding the sense of urgency that you have to have. So no, it's nothing's going to happen overnight. The pyramids were not built overnight, right? Um, there is a process, but there is a certain urgency that you have to have about when you know it's time to do something, do it and leave everything on the field, as we would say with football. Don't leave nothing out. Put it all out on the field. Put your best foot forward. Put your best efforts forward, and be prepared. Have a fight. Be prepared to have a fight to push forward your purpose. 2 weeks before my book was released, I got into a pretty fatal car accident. Car was totaled, got busted up by a work truck around work. Um, and I was in the wrong. I made the wrong turn, so it wasn't on them, but I made a wrong turn, thinking I was in a turn lane, and that was clearly not a turn lane. But it was that was I had two accidents back to back. On the 20th, my car got stuck in the apartment. 21st, that Thursday, the car was completely totaled. And so there was just a lot of things that had just started happening back to back as I'm getting things put together, wrapped up, getting things, ready to be released. But I couldn't allow those things to discourage me. God allowed me to live through those wrecks, live through those instances, um, to encourage you, but to remind me that you still got to, and you can't allow anything to distract you. When it's time to be forward and when it's time to go forward, you don't let nothing stop. Get it done. And those will be my last words.
Amen to that, brother. Amen to that.
So,
Rod, it was lovely having you here once again, good sir. I appreciate you because I know that you're a very busy man and you're only going to get busier with this book. You know what I'm saying? I know everybody's vying for
yes,
your
sir.
time right now, but we appreciate you giving us just even a little crumb of it. You know what I'm saying? We appreciate it, bro.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Well, look for the book again on Amazon, job form again. Uh, Brother Vash will make sure he shares the links. And got a little song that I've put out too to help support with the book. So you all, there's a lot of content that'll be coming out. You can share my website. I'll have more things on as well. You can share my IG, YouTubes, and all those kinds. You can find me in any one of those platforms. So you all support. Thank you again, man, for your platform. I will be starting my podcast as soon as you will be on that. I'll have some workshops coming up around the book. So just you all follow me, and you'll see all the upcoming events that'll be soon. Love you, man. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you allowing me the platform. It means a lot.
Absolutely, bro. It's all love. You know what I'm saying? I'm always going to support you regardless, bro. I got you.
Thank you.
I
Thank
got
you.
you.
Likewise.
Oh, make me start crying, man.
Here, let me give you one of my tears before we go. There you go. There you go.
I got it. I got it.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Reset the Vibe podcast. As always, take care of one another, be kind to one another. Always. With love.
Thank you. One love.